want to welcome you all to The Gateway.
The Gateway is a video podcast directed and hosted by staff members of Somerset Community College's student newspaper, The Bridge.
This is The Gateway.
Hello, SEC, and welcome back to The Gateway. I'm your host, Eli Parker.
And I'm Makayla Scott.
So buckle up today, kids, because we're taking a trip to Kimberly Land, who is an associate professor here at SEC in the Medical Laboratory Technician program. And with her today, she's brought Kelsey Coffey, a grad with her bachelor's degree in medical lab science at EKU. That's correct, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good deal. And Miss Shavona Prater, a sophomore who'll soon be graduating with her Associate of Applied Science degree in Medical Lab Technician. So first of all, we just want to thank you all for coming in here today.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And you mentioned beforehand that there's a significance to this week, which is perfectly lines up with this podcast.
Yes, this week is National Medical Professionals Week. And so we wanted to just celebrate all the medical professionals in the lab, which there's a huge range between phlebotomy students or phlebotomists, medical lab techs, medical lab scientists. So there's a variety of people in the laboratory. So we're celebrating them this week.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
You mentioned the petition. You want to talk about that?
Sure. We're super excited because we, as a faculty of the Medical Lab Tech program, petitioned the governor to also label this week as Kentucky Laboratory Professionals Week, and we did get that petition granted, so we have an official proclamation now.
Awesome.
That is so cool.
Way to represent.
So what exactly do medical lab techs do?
It's a mouthful.
It is.
A lot of people are familiar with phlebotomy, and that's the person that collects your blood sample. But what a lot of people don't see is after the blood's collected, what happens to it. Mm-hmm. And that's where medical lab techs come in. We test blood and various body fluids to detect disease, to rule out disease, or to confirm disease, and also to monitor disease processes. So if the doctor doesn't know what's going on with the patient, he'll run some tests, and we can say, yes, this is what they have, or no, this is what they don't have, and they can do further testing if they want. Mm-hmm. But we do all of that testing.
Was that industry really booming during COVID especially?
Oh my gosh, they cannot keep enough people because it is so busy. Thousands and thousands of samples. And in Kentucky, for about every 1,200 patients, there's one lab tech. Mm-hmm. So that's about the ratio that we're looking at. So every year, each one of us will take care of about 1,200 patients.
Sure.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And that's not just one sample. That's that patient with multiple samples in multiple areas of the lab.
Mm-hmm. And so, speaking of the lab, what kind of program or what is the program that SEC offers here? Can you more dive into that?
Sure.
What you all do
we
here?
have two things. The first thing is a certificate, and that is in phlebotomy. And so it's one semester. And you learn everything about phlebotomy and the samples and how to collect them and where they go in the lab. And then our 2-year degree is our medical lab techs, which they did. Mm-hmm. And that is where you learn each department in the lab and how to test the samples. And so the 5 main areas are chemistry, microbiology, hematology. I know there's a lot of ologies. What am I missing? Urinalysis and body fluids and blood banking. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And even within those areas, you can have sub areas too that are more specialized, like genetics and molecular biology and things like that. So it's pretty amazing how far you can go in this field.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
And what specifically did you two go in for with the program?
The reason I chose to be I'm going to say an MT just because it's easier to say than medical laboratory technologist. I like to help people, but I don't like to be like just right up front in the business, like everything going on. I don't like that. I like to kind of be in the background, I guess, but I also like to make a difference. And that was, I knew I wanted to be in the medical field, but I didn't want to be a nurse. You know, it's too much patient contact for me. I'm just not comfortable with that. But like I said, I wanted to make a difference. So I was like, this is the program that I want to do. I always wanted to be a scientist when I was little. And it was just it just worked out. There was like, oh, this is actually something I can do. It's not just like, oh, I want to grow up to be a scientist, and then you don't. Like, I actually got to do that. So that was
awesome.
really
That's
cool
so
for me.
cool.
That's awesome.
And I'm currently a phlebotomist now.
Oh, see?
Yes.
The program works.
So I've been a phlebotomist for 6 years. And being, a phlebotomist, you're the first one that they see in the lab. You know, you're the one with the most patient contact. But when you go back to the lab, you see all these cool things that all these lab techs are doing. You're like, I want to grow up one day and do that. So it's time, and I'm glad that I have chose that because it's going to be pretty awesome.
Oh, that is awesome.
So what exactly is phlebotomy and like the program that SCC offers for it?
Phlebotomy is they are the collection of the samples, whether it be urines, blood. Basically, that's where we begin. So they have the contact with the patient. You know, they collect all this, and then they take it back to the lab techs to do all the testing to produce the results.
Okay.
And so I feel like some of you might have covered this already, but in your field in phlebotomy, med tech, all that, what is your favorite aspect of it and doing in it?
I'm going to give that to them because I like teaching.
Okay,
So
just
I'm
like
gonna give
that.
that to them.
Well, do you want to go first? You don't want
Well, I'm not a lab tech yet.
Okay, well,
You practically are.
like I said, I really like the aspect that I get to help people, but I get attached to people very easily, so I knew that would be hard for me if I had like loads and loads of patient contact. So I get to make a difference. They don't necessarily always know that it's me making a difference, but that's okay. Like, it's not about me, it's about the patient.
Yes.
But it's just, you do something different every day.
You do.
Like, no day is the same. There's, you may have one patient one day that maybe they're a cancer patient and they're not responding well to their treatment, or maybe they are responding well to their treatment, but, you see the side effects of that in their lab work, and that's pretty rewarding. Or just kind of helping the doctors figure out what's going on with somebody. They're like, we have no idea, and it's like, oh, well, this makes you know that it's their kidneys or, their liver. You help people out every day, and I love that. And you get to, like I said, you get to see really interesting things that, like, I go home and talk about it, and it's like, what are you even talking about? It's like, you just have to talk to somebody that works in the field. It's really cool, I promise.
I totally get that though, because I was a medical assistant previously, and I worked in pediatrics, and I would come home and tell my husband, like, oh, this, I learned this today working here, and this is really cool. I didn't know this was a thing that, with kids. And so it was definitely, like you said, very rewarding, but it was hard at the same time.
Right.
So I kind of get it, but...
Now, I worked in the field before I began teaching, so I worked in the field since 1999. I started teaching here in 2015, so I did my time. I think the most exciting thing for me was discovering what's going on with the patient. So they may run some general tests just to kind of see what is abnormal. And you may be the one person that finds exactly what is going on with that patient, and you're like, we've got it. This is it. This is what is going on. So these students can look at a slide in 5 seconds, know a patient has leukemia. I mean, they're that specialized and they're that trained. You can tell if it's a, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, acute myelogenous leukemia, all these big words, but you can look at the cells and see the changes that are going on in the cells and tell the doctor right away, this is what it is, and they can start treatment right there.
That is
That is
awesome.
really cool.
It is really neat. And like I said, that's in hematology. In blood banking, you can do blood typing, transfusions. And so, you're literally saving someone's life, How cool is that?
Yeah.
That you're the one saying this blood is going to save you,
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there like a shortage recent, like with COVID?
There's always a shortage of blood, but especially when COVID hit, because they were looking for like the antibodies, people that had the antibodies to help patients, and so.
And then people just weren't getting out and donating.
They weren't
donating.
donating.
So we may order, let's just say you order 100 units every week for your hospital, you may only get 50.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And that is stressful as a lab tech,
Yeah.
because you have to delegate who can get that blood, or the doctors.
The
that-
priority, the trauma,
the traumas, you have to figure out who can get that.
Or
and
they
who
may
can
only
wait.
get,
Yeah, they
They may
need
only
two,
get-
you get one.
right.
Yeah.
They may only get one unit instead of two,
Yeah.
dang.
And
Yeah.
it's tough.
That
It
does
is.
sound, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So how do medical lab techs impact the average person?
We are part of their everyday health care. picture. 70% of a chart is laboratory results. And really, I mean, the process that they would have to go to diagnose and treat patients would be so much more extensive if they didn't have laboratory personnel to say A, B, and C. You know.
Or kind of the confirmation to the suspicions of what the doctor thinks is going on, I guess.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are kind of the backbone of this.
Well,
We feel that
yeah.
way.
Not to enlarge the head there, but.
But really, it's an overall picture.
It is, yeah.
And what about you, Miss Shavona? You've been kind of quiet in the back there.
I've been listening.
So why did you get into this?
Well, like I had mentioned, being a phlebotomist, you know, when I walk back into the main lab and I see all these techs doing these things, it's just so cool. And then learning about it in class, and it's like, you know, things start clicking. Right now, my favorite subject is microbiology because it's like you're an investigator. You know, like you start off with, you maybe a wound swab or, you know, urine culture. And, you know, things start growing, and you have to figure out what that bacteria is. And to me, that is so cool. And you do all these little small tests to figure this out.
And then,
It's like a puzzle.
once you figure it out, then what do you do?
Well, then you can result it.
And the antibiotics, the treatment.
Yes,
right?
and, you know, then that goes to the doctor, and the doctor figures out what treatment he is going to give that patient. So, you know, everything kind of comes back to the lab.
That's really cool.
That
Say
is
you're
super
just,
cool.
I guess you just like, kind of like I heard her say over there that it's like a puzzle, pretty much.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Huh. And now I'm going to ask a really geeky question here that I wouldn't have asked until I saw Morbius. But is there, and I'm probably going to come off so stupid asking this, is there a possibility of like there being like artificial blood in the future, like to fill in this sort of...
There is. They're actually working
Oh!
on it. They are working on it right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I don't know the details about it, but I know that they're working on it. I try to
is
keep
really
up to date with like current research and stuff, and I give them information. But yeah,
What about you all in the field? Do you have any knowledge into that at all, or?
I've not personally seen anything. I'm just kind of like I've heard of it. It's been talked about for a long time, so I guess they're now actually working on it, which would be fantastic.
That would.
It'd be so
That would be.
fantastic.
Probably going to end up 3D printing it or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing that with organs, so
They are.
hey,
Yeah.
can't kick that down. And so, you have anything?
You guys have been so great.
You have been very- yeah.
You've been very thorough.
Yeah. Mary, this will go on and on because it's like, you know, we don't know a whole lot about it, but
a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
We want to get the word out. You
Yeah.
oh
know.
yeah, especially this week,
Yeah.
we gotta celebrate.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Awesome.
Well, what
Go
would
ahead.
you guys say to encourage students to come and join your program?
Exactly. Yeah.
What would y'all think? What do you think they would like to know?
It's fun.
is
I
fun.
think it's fun. It's like I've said numerous times, it's a rewarding job. You're not going to get bored. There's always something to do, and it's always something new. I mean, you see a lot of different things. And there's opportunities too. Just because you go to medical laboratory school doesn't mean that you have to work at a hospital. You can work in distilleries, genetics labs, and there's a whole array of things that you can do. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to be a MLT and I'm going to work at a hospital for the rest of my life. No, you don't have to do that. You can. There's a lot more options than just the medical field with this.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
It is fun, but it's hard work,
It
you
is.
know, and you have to pay attention to detail because every
Yes.
little detail matters in this position.
Someone's life could be at stake. For
Yes,
that.
exactly.
And I think you always have to remember that at the end of the day, what you're doing it's not about you.
Mhm.
There is someone sitting at home with a family that's waiting on their results, you know, and you're going to potentially change their life to pay, you know, off the results that you report. So you have to remember that, and I think you have to have a passion for this. You have to enjoy what you do. You can't just kind of halfway do it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, just kind of going back to the COVID years, were you both working kind of frontline too, or just like tell me your experience from COVID? That's a better question.
Okay.
I'm sure it was very demanding.
Very demanding. Lots of phone calls.
Lots of swabbing.
Lots of swabbing, yes.
Running the
Remember when
test.
it first started, we were all scared. I mean, like, every day when Governor Bashir would come on the TV, we would all go in there and watch. Oh my gosh, there's 20 COVID cases in Kentucky. Oh my goodness, the first one in the county where I work. And it was just kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? Nobody knew. Everybody was in that boat, but we knew that we were getting ready to get slammed, and we did. And we have an analyzer that runs 24 samples at a time, and it takes about 2 to 2.5 hours to process 24 samples. So you take that and you think about 200 people a day coming and getting swabbed, and 1 or 2 people generally designated to that department. That's what you're constantly doing. You are doing that all day if that's your department. And even if it's not your department, you're going back to help because you are overwhelmed. And you're just kind of like, oh gosh, I hope none of these are positive. I hope none of these are positive. And then some runs, maybe just a couple out of the 24 hour, and then other runs, it's like, well, there's over half of them, 75%. And that, especially during the, was it the Delta, the Omicron peak just a few months ago, that was, I've never seen so many positives. And that was just kind of overwhelming, but at the same time, it's like, well, if it wasn't for us, they'd just kind of be guessing, like, well, is it COVID? Is it the flu?
And all those positive results go to the health reporting. We send all those positives for them to give those numbers to the public.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was overwhelming, but we got through it, and I hope, that it keeps
going in.
Yeah.
And you mostly were collecting the samples.
Yes, and at the hospital that I work at, we collected PCR and rapid COVID test. Our PCRs we sent out, but our rapids we ran, and we only have 3 little machines that will run 1 rapid at a time, and it takes 15 minutes to run those. So when you're swabbing anywhere from 50 to 120 patients a day, it's a lot of work. It really is.
Yeah.
And we had to rearrange the lab some. We have a hallway in the back that kind of goes outside. Well, we had to put up a metal awning for people to drive under so we could collect it, because we're out there in the rain, the snow, the wind, it doesn't matter the weather, we're out there swabbing. And then you go back in and your feet may be wet all day. It's miserable. But we also had to set up a separate draw area for those with COVID, because just because they have COVID doesn't mean that they don't get tests. That doesn't mean that they can't get blood drawn. So you have to suit up in all your PPE, and then you go out and you collect it like you would.
So how's it now as compared to how it's been the past few years?
Slowed down right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, which, it has slowed down, but I think we're just more comfortable with the processes. At first it was like we didn't even have tests for COVID. It's this new disease. It's not like you can just snap of a finger and you've got everything you need. We had to wait for them to develop the test, and we had to wait to, get approved, to get the money, to get these analyzers that would test for them. And then when you do, it's like...
Get the procedures.
Yeah, get the procedures. And it's just kind of, you got that learning curve and
train everybody for
training,
running
troubleshooting, what if this happens with the specimen? Is it okay to run or not? And I think we're a lot more comfortable, and thank goodness. Like she said, it's calmed down quite a bit, but yes, we're very superstitious in the lab. We don't like
I'm
to
sure
say
it'll ramp
things
back
like
up
that.
at some point.
I'm just super proud that I have students that were able to experience history.
Yeah.
Be part of history. Yeah. You guys, not everyone gets to see a brand new testing platform come into existence and be part of its implementation. So, that's just something that you'll be telling for years to come.
That is crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So what involvement does the program have with the blood drives that we have here on campus?
So the blood drives on campus are primarily done by the
Kentucky Blood Center, or is it?
Well,
American
it's the
Red Cross?
KBC, but we aren't kind of over those. But some of our former students will be processing that blood. So when someone donates blood, they have to test it for any kind of diseases, of course, so you don't transfuse the disease to somebody.
Right.
So they'll be involved in testing that blood unit,
Good,
and then those blood units will go to hospitals where they're working, and so they may transfuse that blood. So.
Okay.
And I just have one final question of concern. This all just isn't a ruse to give our blood to vampires, is it?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
But in all seriousness, thank you all for what you do, because I think your jobs and professions are helpful in general, but I think especially in the past few years, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like you said, history right there.
History,
That is insane and crazy, but awesome.
Thank
So
you.
thank you all very much for joining us and
We
sharing us with
appreciate
this. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. For more information on SCC student newspaper, The Bridge, or the Gateway Video Podcast, email us at sccthebridge@yahoo.com or contact one of the course advisors.
This is the Gateway signing out.